10 years.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I know, because my former employer, although Mario and I are going out for drinks every once in a while to get together after.
Worked with him.
But Jennifer, this is Bill Januzzi. I keep getting prompted to admit people from the waiting room. I suspect there's a setting that's wrong. Hello?
Hey Buell, this is Alec. I hear you over here.
Okay.
Should be in the evening. I'll see if I can get him. No, we're getting there. Yeah. Should be the dates and finding. Find out, yes. I'll see if I can find out.
You guys pick up? On my truck, on my way to your office, you said 23 pounds. Back.
They're going around the bit now, so it might be. Oh, he won't be tired.
They're 36, 37. Under 20.
Oh, yes.
I took it again, because yesterday, there's things, yesterday, yeah, it's the press.
Oh, you didn't have to with you.
Yeah, so I had to stop and go back in and go get it. Traffic work.
Oh, it's been too long since I.
Yeah. So I'm changing it.
I've got it's still affordable, but it's like, it's pretty good size, but 120 volts. Don't mind this here. The one I don't carry it with me. It's in my garage.
Yeah, well, this one has a.
Yeah, so you can do it that way.
Because, you know, not everywhere you're gonna have to.
I know.
Feels better when everyone's running.
Gas station.
Oh, well, we're so early that.
So the shelf station there.
Yeah, it's been great for them.
Sure that.
Oh, they got air. That's an old station they had, but. Charge the bear thing. Oh, that's.
Yeah.
Rob's not joining us today. Oh, yes, yes, I'm. Can you that?
Printed one, unless they've changed.
He
I
printed it. He
I
was an adult who
downloaded that
printed it
from the
himself. Oh, yeah.
website today.
It's the same.
That's the one.
All the legal action.
I wonder if you can tell.
We're doing two.
Needs to this one.
I was wondering that. Point in.
Apparently, we have to re-vote on the things that were voted on.
We were late, so we have to do it again. We missed the deadline. Need to recertify it. Not perfect, but it's all.
I am.
We do know that.
I don't have to.
Thank you for reminding us on a regular basis. The Facebook.
Trying to bring some humor.
I know, so was I, but mine doesn't play as well. That's why I'm usually the straight man.
So I can't.
Two, three, four, five, six. When the tech is all ready, we're ready to go. Why is that? No worries. I mean, like, take your time. I just want you to know we're. Thank you.
It's actually gonna be.
Maybe today, so you get, I gave him first. They live in both. Can you guys hear us online?
It was breaking up, but I heard you.
I can hear you, but if more than one person speaks, it's all garbled.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is 1:07 PM and I'd like to call the Wednesday, July 1st, 2026 meeting of the Tucson Pima County Outdoor Lighting Code Committee to order. Can we get a roll call, please? Amy Oliver, present. Dennis Kuhn,
Here.
Craig Barron,
Here.
Robert East, Bill Januzzi,
Here.
Daniel Slidger,
Here.
Alex Zimmerman.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum. Okay, great. So we'll move right into the agenda. And we need to do our approval of our minutes and legal action report. Both our April 1st, 2026 and May 6th, 2026 meetings. And I get, well, we are voting to accept the legal action report. Let's start with April 1st of 2026. Can we get a motion? Do we need to read it? Does everybody remember? Well, do you want me to go through the notes from it? Do you want me to go through the notes from it? Okay, we have a motion to accept the legal action report for April 1st, 2026 from Craig Barron. Do we have a second?
Okay.
We have a second from Daniel Slater. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
I'm gonna abstain.
okay. Did
I
you
need
want
to-
to discuss?
I need to
No,
abstain,
don't.
Amy.
Well, you will, I think, Lenny abstain. You'll repeat yourself?
I'm abstaining because I don't have the document. Sorry, I didn't see it before the meeting.
This is Alec. I'm abstaining as well because I did not attend that meeting.
Oh. Not passed. We have
Can't
three
hear.
accepting and abstaining.
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
You can't hear me at all. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can anybody online hear me?
I just heard you say, can anybody online hear me?
Seem to have a bit of a problem. Daniel, will you say something into your mic? Can anybody hear Daniel?
Testing.
Hi, Daniel.
Hello.
Hey, then me, this is Amy testing.
I can hear you, Amy, now.
Joel, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Craig.
Like, right, this is my, this,
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
I hear you. It was just breaking up, Amy. I've been hearing you since you started doing the sound test.
okay, all right, great, okay, well, just let us know if that happens again. So we can make sure everybody's is working. So we have three voting yes and three abstaining, so this is not passed. So we are not able to accept our legal action report from April 1st. So we are now voting to accept the legal action report for May 6th, twenty
So,
twenty-six.
Amy, is it possible to share on screen the document so that I can see whether I could support it? When you just say a legal action and I can't see it and I didn't know to look for it before the meeting, it's hard for me to
Yeah,
vote in
the legal
support.
action report, getting minutes from the meeting.
It's just the minutes?
That's what a legal action report is it's the meeting minutes from the meeting.
If it's just approving the minutes, I can support it, but I thought it might contain something else besides the minutes, but if it's just the minutes, I'm happy to vote yes.
It's not. That is all that it contains. So since we have clarification that that's what that document is, can we revote on April 1st? I don't actually know the procedure for that. Can
Or
we
if we-
revote on April 1st since we were not clear on what legal action report meant?
Well, presumably we could make it simple.
Should be required.
Okay, so I can start over, right?
Correct.
Okay. We're gonna stick with May 6th since we're in the middle of that one. So we are currently voting on whether or not to accept and approve the legal action report for meeting minutes for Wednesday, May 6th, 2026. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion to accept the minutes.
All right, and do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, the motion passes unanimously. Now we're going to go back. So let's rewind to the tape. So we are voting to approve and accept the legal action report or meeting minutes for April 1st of 2026. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion to accept the minutes from April 1st.
And can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, well, the motion passes with four. All right, so moving on, we need to confirm and ratify our legal actions taken during the May 6th meeting. So we have approved, the April 1st, 2026 meeting minutes, but, we missed the posting deadline. Is that my understanding? So that's why we just did that again. That is why we just pre-approved those minutes. Also, we had, approved the subcommittee reports from April 15th, 2026 and April 28th, 2026. And I'm gonna just read this off of here so that everyone understands what we were doing at that time. And because it has been a couple of months. So we had a discussion of spectral outputs of various LED lighting types. We didn't want to establish, there was a potential of not establishing a lumen cap. For that, the issue was a bit complex and had to come back to the full committee for further discussion. And then we had, no update from our technical subcommittee, which was recently, we first started trying to establish that in January of 2026. The continuation of that throughout the spring, attempting to get that ready to go. And Dennis, our vice chair, had requested that the second subcommittee continue to work on his assigned items. With consideration, being given to maintaining just one subcommittee if we could not, get that continued. So we also at that time had an approval of committee discussion. So I was communicating with the technical subcommittee to get an update for the June meeting, which was later canceled. Sorry about that. Got to put my phone on silent. Everybody wants you when a meeting starts. So, and then Greg Barron took over at that time to work with that technical subcommittee, just for clarification there. And then Dennis also had proposed a lumen table for designers to use to assist with allowable lumens per geographic location. So those are things that happened in that meeting, as well as the approval of future agenda items for June. We need to actually ratify that. We're just asking for clarification. It is on our agenda for ratification, but I just want to make sure that we need to ratify that in addition to having ratified the legal action before.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Dan. It's, my understanding that we do.
Okay, so we are voting to confirm and ratify the legal actions that were taken during that May 6th meeting. Can I get a motion to ratify legal actions?
Did we redo that, May 6th?
No, that we just approved the minutes. Now we're ratifying the decisions that we made. We took several votes at that meeting. So we need to ratify the vote.
Yeah, this is Dennis. I'll make a motion that we, acknowledge and approve the action that, took place, in the May 6th meeting, reviewing the subcommittee reports from April 15th, April 28th. And we need a separate motion on each bullet point, and can we get everything in one? Let's do it separate for each.
Okay,
So
That's
that's the
fine.
first one that we accept the subcommittee reports from April 15th and April 28th of this year.
I second it.
okay, so we have a motion to ratify the approval of the subcommittee reports from April 15th and April 28th. We have a second on that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I see Dean's got his hand raised. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Okay, so we are also voting on to ratify the approval of the April 1st, 2026 minutes. Because that's in that same legal action report. Can I get a motion to approve the ratification?
We just did that.
No, we approved the minutes again. We still have to approve the previous ratification. I know.
What does ratification of the minutes mean? I'm sorry. How's that different from accepting the minutes?
ratification of the Great Western Fuel, so we're not ratifying minutes. What we are doing at this time is ratifying our legal actions for things we voted on in the May 6th meeting.
What did we vote on
So-
the May 6th meeting?
That's all those things that I just read out.
Okay, thank you.
Started to. Okay. They're all listed on the agenda, so if you have a copy of the agenda in front of you, we're on agenda item number 3, confirm and ratify the legal actions taken during the May 6th meeting.
Thank you.
So we ratified the approval of the subcommittee reports already. And now we are confirming and ratifying the previous approval of the April 1st, 2026 minutes. Can I get a motion?
This is Dennis. I'll move to do that, although I question whether it's truly necessary because we just did reapprove those minutes in the item 2 on our agenda. But, okay, I'll put the motion down.
Second.
Oh, we have a motion and a second. All approved or all in favor?
Aye.
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 It passes unanimously. It's fine. It's been done twice now.
Yeah.
That's fine. Either way, it's done. We might do it a third time. Next meeting. All right, and then, so the next item that needs, confirmation and ratification is, to be voted on 2 committee discussion items. So first was my communication with the new technical subcommittee to get work and updates for the June 3rd meeting. Can I get a motion?
Yes, this is Dennis. I will move that we approve both of those discussions.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, to confirm and ratify. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Gil and Alex, we did not hear your votes.
Aye.
Okay, thumbs up, got it. Okay. The motion passes unanimously. The second item was, Vice Chair Dennis Kuhn proposed limit tables for designers. We are not, ratifying the table. We were ratifying his, desire to move forward to prepare that for discussion, just to be clear with everyone. Can I get a motion? And a
I'm
second?
sorry, Amy, I can't, I'm sorry to be slow-witted, but I just don't understand what ratifying, do you mean we're accepting or we're supporting? What, I've never, this is my first meeting in more than 10 years where I've heard the words ratify. Ratify sounds like we're approving a code or something, so I'm just feeling a little confused.
Clayton, do you have an explanation? This is new, actually, for this committee. We don't do this very often. So I think this is a good moment to just pause for a second and educate the whole committee on why we are doing this.
This is Clayton for the city of Tucson. I can't speak to the specifics of the current actions, but I can speak to the definition of ratifying. Ratifying is changing the content of something that was already approved. So I will say that if a posting is not made within the required timeline, the state will not accept meeting minutes from a previous meeting. So you would be required to revote on that. A ratification would be changing the content of something that was officially voted on and passed.
Okay, so does that make sense to everyone?
Well,
We
except that
voted on these
if,
things
if,
already.
if I'm following what Clayton said, if these were not officially approved, they can't be changed. You can just approve them. You can't change something that wasn't approved. So if this is the first round of
Correct.
approval,
Well,
it's
no, I have-
approval, not ratification. But I don't want to
It
get,
is both.
yeah.
We are changing a record because we voted on these items. We did approve them. but we missed the posting date. And so they could not be accepted.
Okay, I don't want to slow you
So-
down. Keep going. I understand what's going on.
Okay, so, so again, we're back at the item on the approval of committee discussion, that we need to confirm or, and of course ratify the record that Dennis had proposed that he move forward with creating a lumen table for designers that we could use to assist with allowable lumen tables for geographic location. Can I get a motion?
Yes, this is Dennis. I will move that.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously. I see a raised hand from you. Okay, and then the last item that was on, that report, that we need to do this for was, the proposed, or Dennis proposed to maintain the same agenda items, for the June 3rd meeting, which, we all know did not occur. It was canceled, so, we just need to confirm that.
Yeah, this is Dennis. I'll make a motion that we are confirming that that's what happened.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, I got a thumbs up from Buell, so it looks like that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Let's not do that again. Our solemn commitment. Okay, so we're moving on to our next item on the agenda, which is our call to the audience. So before we get started on that, I want to make sure that we remind everyone what call to the audience means. Because we have two different items on this agenda. So call to the audience is your opportunity to tell the committee things, but we cannot respond to you during this time period. We can listen very well with our active listening, and then if we have questions for you about it, we will ask you in agenda item number 7. So we're gonna open the floor to our audience now.
Did I stand?
That's a microphone. Let's make sure before you start talking, just like shout some things out and see if they can hear you online.
If you come close to.
Where? You gotta push
Turn
the,
it on.
push the button. Red light should come on. Oh,
There you go.
Good afternoon, my name is Bob Yosley. Just recently moved to Arivaca, Arizona from Washington State, where I was founder of an organization that has a website called Dark Sky Defenders. Mission is a public education that just handed out a good neighbor lighting brochure. That's an example of the type of education that I think is really necessary when we have a lighting ordinance.
What's your last name, Bob? What's your last name?
Yosley, Yoesl. I just wanted to distribute that as an example. The kind of educational material that I think is very important for the public to have and understand why you have a lighting ordinance and the benefits of it. I just did some shopping at Home Depot. And literally there are hundreds and hundreds of outdoor lighting fixtures there. Out of those hundreds and hundreds, maybe 10% might be dark sky compliant. None of them indicate that they are dark sky compliant. And just as graphic in terms as I can think of, it makes little sense that you have hundreds of non-compliant lighting that can go out the door at the point of sale and no information available to the customer who may not even be aware that there's a lighting ordinance, that they're buying a fixture that doesn't comply with the ordinances imposed. They may then be subject to having an infraction of the code. So I think having something like this available and on your website and to educate the public is very important. really take a serious bite at this, increasing problem. Makes little sense to allow all that lighting to go out the door and then have to retroactively say, wait a minute, you didn't do the right thing. So just my input on the real importance of public education on this issue. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Bob.
Rick Hollinger from the IEI. I'd like to point out, IEI has created a PowerPoint so the public can look at somewhat similar to this. Pima County, I work with Pima County and City of Tucson. They put a link to our IEI website that you can view that PowerPoint presentation. So there is education available out there. As far as what Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace sells, codes can never dictate what somebody can sell. We can try to educate them, but we can't stop them from selling products.
Thank you. The committee recognizes Dr. Richard Green.
I don't have the volume all computer. This is just sharing a news item, which is that the Arizona Department of Transportation has decided to light the state maintained highways around the Flagstaff area with phosphor converted amber. So they feel that the color rendition is sufficient for their safety requirements on their highest traffic roads, and they're looking to expand that to other parts of the state.
Thank you. We have any, online?
Kevin, you can go ahead.
Hi, my name is Kevin Crumweedy. I'm a Tucson resident. I attended some meetings of this committee about a year and a half ago to report that I was getting no traction with the city of Tucson's code inspectors regarding the lighting code. And I'm here today to report that the situation has not improved at all. In fact, it's worse. I've reported dozens of violations in my neighborhood and only one was ever corrected. They don't seem to understand color temperature. So I've retreated. I know there's many different parts of the code, things about number of lights, installation without permits, increase of 25%, all that. I've retreated to only focusing on color temperature because that's something that I can verify myself and photographically document from the street. And even with that, I can't get any traction for enforcement. Bizarrely, I saw one neighbor, it was somebody that moved in and immediately replaced all their lights with 5000K LEDs. I saw they removed all those fixtures and put in some compliant lighting. But in another example, there was a case where it was my next door neighbor, actually. The lady got evicted, and so I knew the property. I'd been in her house, and they did a whole bunch of work without permits, new roof, new air conditioning, new porch, all this stuff, and replaced all the lights with 5000K LEDs. After 8 months, they finally closed that complaint, did not fix the lighting code violation. Another example, an apartment complex replaced all their lights with 5000K LEDs. They came out so they posted photos attached to the report in PRO. They came out at 10:30 in the morning to investigate a lighting code violation, said they couldn't verify it and left. This is what we're dealing with. I've done a survey in my neighborhood, which is zoned MH2, so low density. About 1 out of every 5 homes has a 5000K LED. That's about 80 violations per square mile. I estimate a minimum of 25,000 violations in residential in the city, probably another 25,000 commercial. If the city won't enforce it, the lighting code is moot. With regard to commercial sales, I know that you can't restrict what companies like Home Depot can sell, but I do believe that the county has the authority to require them to put stickers on things that say illegal for outdoor use in Pima County. That would go a long way to addressing the problem. And I know you said you can't respond at this time, but I would like it if someone could address how, if at all, the National Electrical Code interacts with the county lighting code. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more on?
Yes, John Mitchell?
Yes, I'm on the same dark sky committee that Elise Gore, who usually attends its meetings, participates in. I'd just like to know what your schedule is for any advice and or restrictions that will apply to HOAs. We've had a number of meetings over the last year or so on our HOA. We've developed a good compliance for the common area, recreation area, roads and landscaping areas. Now we're working on trying to get more specific information to give to our neighbors. We fortunately don't seem to be in as bad a position as the previous speaker was about his neighborhood, but we do have a number of violators, and we'd like to have some definite rules come out of this committee, out of your committee, that would help us in addressing the issue with our residents. We think a number of them would be responsible if they were educated. We're doing a lot of work in education, and we've had good response there, but we think we need to continue that. So I'd just like to advocate that your committee consider residential areas, particular HOAs such as ours, which I know there are a lot of them in Pima County, large groups of residential buildings that are all kind of administered the same. And I'd like to have some more information so we can firm it up for our HOA. Thank you.
Probably not. Do we have any more?
No.
Online? Do we have any more? Thank you. I don't know why it would work for me. Do we have any additional comments from inside the room? Okay. We'll move on to our next item on the agenda, item 5, which is our subcommittee reports. I'll go ahead and give the technical subcommittee report. Dennis, if you'd like to give the regular code committee, so I don't have to talk for like 10 minutes straight. I would appreciate that. You wanna go ahead and start?
Sure, I can go first. Our normal subcommittee, we met on Friday, June 26th, about 4 p.m. till I think it was almost 7 by the time we quit. And we went over multiple items. One was that we went through the latest code draft, which is dated 11/01/25, and talked through multiple typos and erratas to clean up language in various items. We also moved on to discussion of the lumen caps, and we've made some progress on that. We're looking at going toward 2 options, much like the present 2012 code, where it's either a mostly amber lumen caps or a more open lumen cap to any allowable color temperature, and the lumen caps would be different from one to the other, more restrictive in the other. But we're also going to add to that a lumen multiplier, which will have the effect of making light sources that have more blue in them count more cap and those that have less blue light. We don't have the exact numbers worked out yet. I'm hoping in our next subcommittee meeting, we may get there and finally say this is where we're gonna be. But, to give an example of where we're at in the category of white light, we're saying that if you were at 2200 Kelvin or warmer, your lumen multiplier, which would be 1. That means that the allowable lumens would be very similar to what they are in the 2012 code for the various lighting areas, using 2200 Kelvin LED or warmer source. At 2700 K, we think the multiplier is 1.43, and at 3000 K, the multiplier is 2. So as you move away from the very warm sources into whiter sources, they impact your lumen cap in a greater manner. This also takes into account the fact that we're now going to be requiring large areas, lighting, like parking lots, to have motion sensing controls in the lights. If we didn't have that, we'd have to make these numbers more severe to try to sky issue. There's just too much blue light coming out of the LED sources. The other thing we did is we went on to review comments that Alex Zimmerman made on the technical subcommittee issues, and Amy brought those to our subcommittee, and I think she's going to go ahead with those now.
Yeah, we'll also point out during that subcommittee meeting, so sent several items. We went through some of the graphics that had some issues in them or needed changes, and those were sent corrected at that time, sent to Dan for inclusion in the next draft that comes out. So we were quite on time to bring them here today, but they'll come out in the next draft. So thank you to everyone who made comments on that, so we can make those corrections. For the technical subcommittee, the primary report is that this committee has not, this subcommittee has not had an ability to come together as a group. Alex Zimmerman, I did want to offer a huge thanks to, was able to put together a number of comments on the items that we asked the technical subcommittee to work on, and that was very helpful, as Dennis pointed out, in our meeting. Hang on, see if I can get my computer to open, and then maybe we'll talk about them. Hey, technology. I let it go to sleep, so now it works. So the items that we had asked the technical subcommittee to work on had been to think about the right of ways. And so Alan had pointed out to us that we needed to think more about using terms like photometric calculations as opposed to a computer program printout, to make it more clear. So we're making those changes right now, so I just want to be clear that most of these were accepted as is, and we have some follow-up questions. To go with, this is not a document that is out yet because we still have a number of changes. Just want to make sure everybody understands what's going on, that we're being transparent. There were some confusing statements that were made in the right of way section. So Alec had also made some recommendations for clarifying those, which have been very helpful, about foot candles and vacancy sensing. And as well as we asked the technical subcommittee to consider overhangs and canopies, which has been a rather significant topic for this subcommittee, and we're still working through that. Alec has given us a number of important things that we need to think about photometric analysis, but depending on the type of installation under a canopy or an overhang. So we're still working on that right now. That takes quite a bit more time to do that. Can't just be done sitting in a room together. As well as we asked for advice on the lumens caps as we consider multi-story buildings and being able to meet their needs. And so Alec has provided us with a significant number of comments on how we can do that. So considering the square footage of the building and the stories, as well as the international building codes. And then he has also provided, updates for us. We asked the committee about, the underwater lighting. So Alec has started providing those diagrams, so thank you again for that. So again, those will come out in the next, draft of the code law. They're complete, and accurate, and so have all of the degree angles on them and everything. So also the sign, we asked them to consider the, chapter 5 about signs. And so making sure that we clarify lighting explanations for signs. And so that would be cabinet signs, signs on businesses, those sorts of things. And so understanding why the lumens cabin, or not the lumens cabin, excuse me, color temperature 4400, clarifying what is an offsite sign. Those sorts of really important things in the code to make it clear, what is going on there. And then the last thing, Alec was able to provide us a comment on, and Alec, anytime feel free to jump in if I'm saying something incorrect here. Since you're here for this, and then we asked him to also look at chapter 6, which is about outdoor amphitheaters and performance areas. And make sure that we have that correct so that it's a safe environment to be in and also not overlit. And he's made some really good comments for us to consider about making sure that our willingness to help them operate is not overlighting them. Which was really helpful. The one thing the technical subcommittee has not been able to make any headway on was master lighting plan. So we have a different pathway we're following with that. And thank you to Priscilla Storm, for helping us start to get the information we need for that. So that's what's going on there. In light of, we've been trying to get the technical subcommittee off the ground since January, and we've just not been able to do that. We want to make sure that the code is moving forward as quickly as possible, which is why we're doing things like the working with this information. So, we are temporarily suspending that committee so that we're not putting work into a place where we're not going to see it move forward very quickly. So we'll be doing the individual work modifications to make sure that that moves forward. That's it.
One other point, we have 2 more subcommittee meetings scheduled. I think the next is,
July 8th.
July 8th and then 15th also.
Correct. That is correct. So if anybody didn't hear that online, subcommittee is meeting on July 8th and July 15th. At the very least, there might be an additional one at the end of July.
The point being, we're trying to accelerate this thing to try to get it.
This is Alec.
Okay.
Can you just help explain again? Are you saying that the technical subcommittee is being shut down? Is that what you're saying?
Well, since it hasn't actually launched, it has had a failure to fully launch. What we're gonna do is if we need something, we'll just reach out directly, right, to you. We have something for you rather than trying to, pull a bunch of people together. We know that it's hard getting multiple people in a room. The subcommittee has to do it with 5 people, on a regular basis. We somehow we're making it work. So instead, we'll just do it that way. So we can
This is
make it a
Alec.
little-
Yeah, this is Alec. That sounds perfect. I just wanted to make sure that you knew that I was here to support if needed.
We do, and we really appreciate you for doing that. That was a ton of work. I think it's like 6 pages. Well, thank you. For
Yeah,
that.
thank you.
Great, so I'd like to open it up now, just, we're at agenda item number 6 to the committee discussion, so this is again a time for committee members, to discuss all of these items with each other or any questions, that we have amongst ourselves. Dennis, if you have anything you want to bring to the floor today?
Well, I guess maybe we should hear back from Buell and Alec if there's anything you want us on the subcommittee to pay more attention to, and Daniel also, yeah. That would be most helpful to me.
This is Alec. I think my only comment on the multipliers is to continue to remember with the occupancy sensing that is proposed to be added to the new code, right? How much that potentially will lower the blue light during unoccupied times.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's been a factor in it because I believe that if we're gonna truly address the effect on sky glow from LEDs, we would need a much more severe multiplier on all the other than amber LED sources. So I think the occupancy sensing controls to dim lighting is a major factor. But that by itself, I think it still needs a push. We need to encourage people to go closer to amber light. If we had that in 2012 and prior, the predominant outdoor lighting source would, in other than sensitive areas, E1 areas, was high pressure sodium. If you look at the spectrum of high pressure sodium, how much blue is coming out of that, it compared to any of these LED sources, and it's a big difference. And every day an old high pressure sodium light gets retired, and if we're lucky, it gets replaced with a 3000 K or warmer. Many of them do not. They're even worse. That's the enforcement side. I don't see, in terms of running a code, we can't deal directly with enforcement, but we need to put the encouragement to go to the warmer colors. That's, I think, the biggest thing we can do to help with the sky glow. I also believe that had LEDs not happened, people would be building all their buildings with high pressure sodium and accepting that very, very orange, corally color that comes out of that. That is not terribly well color rendering, but still was an acceptable light source. Quite frankly, 2200 K LED is better than HPS on color and such. So I think we're going to a reasonable place with what we're trying to do with the lumen cameras.
Yep, this is Alec. Dennis, I appreciate your comments. I think my only response to that would be, I don't think it's a color temperature, at least from the commercial application. I think it's more of a cost and lead time concern.
And then this is Buell. I was during the call of the audience, I think it was Richard Green reported that the state is now approving the use of the amber colored light on roadways. And I think as you're going through the code again, if there are opportunities, we're offering that option as a way to deal with challenging lighting designs and still staying under the intent, the sort of spirit of the total lumen cap goals, I think is something I hope you'll look at and at least discuss, because in the past we've heard that it wasn't necessarily possible to meet standards with the amber colored light, but it sounds like Flagstaff or the area around Flagstaff and the state have found a way to do it. So I think that's something I hope you'll consider. Thanks.
Yeah, Buell, this is Amy. I think that's really interesting. I had heard that also more recently, and so I think that's something we definitely need to be considering. I'd be interested to learn more about how do we get that closer. How do we bring that this way? How can they expand here next? Particularly for the highways, so that that becomes more obvious that it's a possibility. Because that is, sounds like for the highways, right? So for I-19, I-10, so it's not necessarily directed at in-town streets. But,
Oracle Road, if it's under the state DOT,
oh, is it?
I
That's a
believe so. That's a state
Is it
highway.
how-
I'm not how deep.
I have to ask.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. I think what I was trying to say was that I think it'd be nice to get whatever documentation is on how they decided that this was meeting standard. Because there might be other situations where that will help convince people that this is a valid alternative, not necessarily the only option, but a valid alternative and worth putting into the code.
Yeah. Thank you. I have one, so we talked about in the subcommittee, when we were talking about the chapter 5 for the signs, we were trying to figure out how to deal with lighting explanations for these because of the light pollution we're getting from signs. For some reason in our code, it almost makes it appear like, and I'm not, Alec, I'm gonna bring you into this in a second because you made a good comment to us about this, but for some reason it looks like we're saying that the originating light source has to be 4,400 Kelvin or warmer. And so we had talked to you about maybe perhaps for something to be a sign, it has to be encased in fully enclosed cabinet for the lighting code. Or we have to remove translucent and opaque as part of the language. We've also talked at times about limiting the limits per linear foot, but we don't really know how to do all of this. But you, Alec, asked us, why is 40 in a sign? Because the signs have to be lit internally, overlit internally, maybe we should have a maximum color temperature on that. So I just wanted to bring that up in the committee. So we can talk about that. I know we've talked about it in the past, but it's been a long time.
We did, and we also did a tour a few years ago, looking at signs, and we've had people from, the sign industry involved as well as other interested folks. And, one of the points that was brought out was the graphics on, say, a box sign internally lit. When they're lighted with a very warm light source, they tend to not look white, they look brown. Right? Or it looks like the white parts of the sign are covered with a layer of dust or such. So that was one of the reasons why the sign industry was pushing toward a slightly bluer light. And Buell, I know you were along with that tour, so I don't know if you have any particular comments on that, but I think part of the idea was that because it's inside the box sign and it has the plastic front on the sign, that tends to absorb some of the UV and most blue light anyway. And I think that was part of the idea of accepting the 4,400K because it was somewhat a contained source and also somewhat limited, only being in signs and not everywhere.
That's correct.
Through all of the draft stuff. So, but are what we saying now, so part of the issue has been, so when we were considering that, that was primarily to do with cabinet signs. So the light was inside of it, but I think the issue is that we haven't really made it clear in the code now that is meant, that color temperature is only for internally lit signs. We haven't done maybe a very good job of clarifying it so that it can be properly enforced.
Except it's under subparagraph 501.3, which that whole paragraph is internal illumination of signs. The requirements of this paragraph apply to totally enclosed and unenclosed signs where the lamp is not directly visible from any viewing angle.
Yeah, I mean, but I wonder if we need to just make it more clear. So Alec's point was, sorry, Alec, I'm talking about you like you're not here, was that we say things like in 501.4, lamps not concealed from view by opaque or translucent materials that shall be considered outdoor lighting, but maybe we need to make it more clear, like maybe very, very explicit somehow. Like we think we're being explicit, but then we see installations where it's obvious we haven't been explicit enough for whoever had to do the enforcement.
I mean, how do you make it more explicit? Completely closed, airtight box? I mean,
Maybe it's a different point, which is, I think we all understand that if it say has graphics that are like alphabetic letters, or perhaps a geometric shape that is a company's logo or represents an image that's part of the company, that's a sign. But when it then is that, and then it continues as a line of light 50 feet long along the wall of the building. Is that continuation away from the actual graphics still part of the sign? Or, you know, at what point does it become outdoor lighting instead of being part of the signage? And that's a problem I grapple with in trying to decide how to present that on a set of plans or doing an outdoor lighting special inspection. Am I looking at a sign or am I looking at an outdoor light fixture? And I'm thinking that for it to be a sign, it really has to have lettering or a company logo or something of that nature, as opposed to just being lighting that wraps around the whole building or wraps along an entire wall or outlines an arch or something of that nature. But I don't know how to put the words to that.
I'm actually, unless somebody has a better idea, I am going to make that recommendation that we call Judd. Ask him. Look. Why would we call and ask him help?
That'd be fine. Maybe we need to invite him to a subcommittee meeting.
And this is Alec. Who is that again? Sorry.
It's June.
Jude Cook.
I'm sorry, Jim.
Yeah, Jude Cook, he is a sign contractor and he's been very willing to participate in our other activities, like when we had to drive around to look at signs. And he's been very open and helpful, offering suggestions on what a sign builder can do and what they can't do and why.
Perfect. Thank you.
I have another item just for discussion or questioning, and maybe it goes more toward Clayton and Dan. Because we ourselves express frustration with all the non-compliant lights around. And because we've heard from the public that it's very easy to buy a light fixture that's not going to comply. I don't think our committee could do it, but could mayor and council, board of supervisors, do some type of policy or ordinance, whatever it would have to be, to require that the sellers of lighting products have to, say, post in their stores some type of acknowledgement that the outdoor lighting is regulated by code in Tucson and Pima County, and all fixtures to be installed outdoors have to meet this color temperature, and in many cases have to be shielded. I mean, it could be something as brief as this, but that they have to have it there in the store, which will provide some direction, because I know that if you're not in the business, you just don't have any idea. And it's very confusing to go to a big box store or just the grocery store or hardware store and buy light bulbs. That they're all over the place, and they don't often even say the color temperature of a light bulb. They might just use descriptions like it is daylight or it's off, which are totally different things in how they manifest themselves. One actually better and one worse. Anyway, my question about the ability to require something like that.
Well, yeah, I think it's education of the sales community also, because Ty Kaplan did that years ago. I mean, we went to
Yes, he
Costco,
did.
went to Sam's Club, went to all the different places and said, hey, we have an outdoor lighting code. It would help us if you could provide full cutoff fixtures so that when end users come in, they could buy something that's fully shielded.
It stuck about 6 months.
Yeah, it did. It lasted for a while. And actually Costco, because I flipped houses for 15 years, and all my houses, I could find fairly inexpensive LED full cutoff fixtures to be able to put on the outside of the houses. And so they are available out there, just not in numbers. As Bob gave us the flyer, you can see on the flyer, there's a tremendous amount of different options for a fully shielded fixture. The problem is, these things are way too expensive. You can find them cheap, but not locally. Get them online cheap, but not locally. And, you know, a few, Lowe's and Home Depot, they have one or two of those available. And so I think it's the education of those sales that, hey, there are other, opportunities for you out there to sell, something that the city of Tucson is pushing for the residential user.
This is Clayton with the city of Tucson. I can't immediately answer to the powers that could achieve what you're asking, but we can certainly look into it on the city side with mayor and council. I would like to point out that it would be very difficult to limit a retail establishment from selling any specific type of fixture, simply because that would also suggest the fixture could only be installed outdoors or something of that nature. So to say you can't sell unshielded fixtures would be also to suggest.
Yeah, I wasn't
fixtures-
suggesting that because I realize we really can't limit that, but I think that perhaps they could have a notice, I mean, thinking there may have been, okay, a gas station has to say you can only dispense gasoline into an approved container. That's the only one that comes to mind, but there must be other things of that nature.
Yeah, I agree. It would be interesting to find out, can we have them put up signs? Be like, hey, on the lighting aisle, you have to put, there is a lighting code here, so make sure whatever you buy, if you're installing it outside, meets the lighting code.
I think the only thing we can do is recommend. We can't say, hey, put this on. You know, we say, in order to help the dark skies community in Tucson, can we look at going this route and talk to those, you know, the Costco's, the Home Depots, the Sam's Clubs.
Oh, yeah, this is Dan. It would be the same with the county. I'm more than willing to, check, to see how we might possibly be able to propose a resolution or something like that.
If that's something that's possible for them to do, then maybe our committee could draft of formal request. And that's something could ultimately end up on the cities and the counties, governing bodies, schedule, you know, for them to consider. Because I think that would help, because I think a lot of people that do it wrong don't intend to do it wrong. They just do it wrong because they don't know any better. Okay.
Anybody else? But you're still talking about the subcommittee.
Well, I know, but I don't know how deep we want to go into some of the technical issues here. So I'm saving it for something maybe.
Well, but they're here. You got 6 people. So if you want, more brains on it.
Well, I'll give more brains then, and I'll engage Alec on this one because of your question that had come up originally on the amphitheater and whether it should get relief, much like what we call outdoor recreational facilities. And my opinion is that it belongs in chapter 6. So it would get relief from the shielding requirements and possibly from some color temperature requirements. But I think the break that we ought to give is between actual, say, theatrical or performance lighting, which are stage lights, if you want to call it that, for lights for the show. They need to be exempt from color temperature. They should be exempt from shielding because there are certain aspects of certain shows. You got to shine light all over the place, but the shows are of limited duration, limited time. And that's the reason why they can be exempt, the same way football field lighting can be exempt and other things of that nature for recreational facilities. I also think there's a point that the audience area lighting could be exempt from the lumen caps because lighting a amphitheater is a different task than lighting a parking lot or other outdoor areas, and it might take more lumens, particularly, depending on the layout, if you have fixed seating, et cetera. So I think that there's some legitimacy in that. But the key behind anything in chapter 6 is that it's operating under a curfew. So that lighting outside the lumen cap would only happen during events, and it has a cutoff time and all that. So I think we can pretty easily include that in the lumen cap. In the big picture, it's not going to make a terrible difference on sky glow compared to all the other problems we're having that are contributing to sky glow. So I would support those kinds of things. And I think in our working subcommittee, we're trying to get them, we're going to get them into chapter 6. If you got any comments on that.
Yeah, this is Alec. Dennis, I agree with you on all those comments. The performance is happening in such a small window. And then those lights that are pointed, some directly horizontally at the band shell, it's hard to categorize what angle they could be at, what color temperature they could be at, because I think as we all have been to many different concerts, they're all different colors and angles, and especially when you're in the exterior, in an exterior location. We are working on a project at Reed Park, that's doing something similar to this, or that's trying to do something similar to this. And what the band hands have told us is that, hey, we just need this operational an hour before and an hour after so we can test it. And then we have time to shut it off afterwards. But when we're cleaning and maintaining everything, that is the housekeeping lights and the egress lights that Dennis, you were referring to kind of at the end of what you were talking about. So most of those then go to the full cutoff range and rather than the unshielded. So I think we're on the same page, Dennis, and I would agree with you.
Yeah, so I think, I'm glad you brought it up to begin with, and I think we're gonna have it. We're gonna have it in the code.
I mean, then I'm glad you moved abruptly, so I wasn't sure you were done.
Yeah, I'm
Anybody else? Daniel, do you have any questions or anything you want to discuss today?
This time.
Okay, Alec, do you have anything else?
Not at this time. Thank you.
You. Dennis. I feel fine. We're all okay. We would like to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the open public discussion. So how this is different, as a reminder for everyone to call to the audiences, we've added this item to the agenda where we can have an open discussion with everyone in the room and online. So you have questions about anything we've discussed today, or you want to open up for discussion about what you talked about. If you talked during the call to the audience, this is your time to do that. So we'll just take questions and comments, discussion as they come in. Yeah, they can't hear you online probably.
This is Adventures. My question is the committee going to continue discussing the comments that were provided by the public last year? And my second question is, will the subcommittee meetings be open to the public? Thank you.
So typically, we'll let Dennis talk about the one part, then the comments. I'm gonna answer the comments part. We've addressed all of the comments that were brought to us during the last public open comment period. And so we did that across several prior meetings. We addressed them all. in the meetings. And there will be another public open comment period, once the new draft comes out. So we'll be cycling right back around to that, on a new draft. Well, you want to talk about subcommittee meetings?
I don't know what the rules are on subcommittee. I thought that anybody could be invited, but we cannot have a quorum, so we can only have no more than 3 code committee members.
Yeah.
So,
And Dan Clayton, we can't have just an open meeting like this with less than a quorum. We have to be specifically invited guests, is that correct?
This is Clayton with the city. So, the subcommittee can, include anyone, as long as they don't have a quorum. And the discussion can be very, very broad. There's no limits on what can be discussed, just so long as it's not a quorum of the committee, which means you cannot have 4 or more of the members present.
can anyone drop into the meeting, into a subcommittee meeting, or do we have to invite people?
This is Clayton. I believe the attendance is actually set by the subcommittee.
If we have a policy on that.
We've never talked about it.
Never had anyone.
I wouldn't exclude anybody if they showed up. I mean, I don't care. Just how do you know about it? That's the problem.
I see a problem with that. If you're not gonna advertise it, who's gonna know to drop by? And if you are gonna advertise it, how are you gonna decide, how are you gonna keep your group meeting to a size where you can still work?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point also because of the current location we have the meeting, we wouldn't be able to do it there anymore. That's.
Yeah.
And time restraints. I mean, if we get, 4 or 5 different things, people in there talking about something different, it'll go, well past those 3 hours that we normally spend.
Yeah, it's a good question for consideration.
It would work better for us probably to invite people in, that someone has a particular way they can either help us or needs to talk to us as we're doing things they can request.
So I'll remind you that back in 2012, 2011, we did sometimes hold special meetings that didn't have a quorum, that were informational and were advertised. We had one with ADOT, we had one with law enforcement. Do you remember those, Craig? Craig and
In subcommittee meetings, those were informational meetings.
they were informational meetings, but they didn't meet quorum. So at some level, I think they were hosts. I can't remember the details. That's why I'm asking for help. I seem to remember that it actually was effectively the subcommittee that held it as opposed to a official meeting, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe.
No, you're
Clayton
right. It was the subcommittee that held it. It just was not a working meeting.
But we discussed things and the public was welcome and it was advertised.
Okay, sorry, Priscilla. Please.
I think there's so much substantive work that is being done in the subcommittee, and I understand that you guys need, it's a working meeting among yourselves to wrestle the alligators through the parts of the ordinance. But it might be helpful if there was a Zoom link and it was just for listening only, so that those of us that are interested in the topic, are trying to get educated to help be part of finding a balanced solution, could just, if we wanted to, connect via Zoom and not engage in any way, but just sort of understand what you're trying to balance as you work through some of the challenges in a subcommittee setting. And that might be an option. There's lots of stakeholders that are interested 360 degrees around every aspect of this ordinance. So that might be a solution.
And
And as it
we're allowed to do that.
as it relates to the going through all the comments. We were at the meetings where we had the massive packet with all the tables of all the comments that were received. And we were going through line by line and you know, that the subcommittee was working on that section or they had rejected or accepted something. But we didn't make it all the way through the comments in those meetings. It sort of stopped and then went poof.
We grouped a number of them together. So we didn't necessarily go through every single comment individually. If 8 or 9 people made the same comment, those comments were grouped together.
I would say, I think it's unreasonable to expect that every comment is gonna result in some kind of code change either. I mean,
For sure, there were, I mean, nobody expects.
yeah,
that
they're all over the place. I mean, I
Yeah.
really feel like we have acknowledged all the comments. But there's only so much of it that we can, that will actually manifest itself in changes to the text of the code.
Sure, for sure. I mean, it was very obvious in all the comments that if you accommodated one, then by virtue of that, you were denying another because they came.
It can be, yeah, it's all over the place.
That's true. That is the expectation sometimes.
I think our focus here is, though, we have an underlying task, which is that we have to make sure that we're addressing the sky flow issue, which is a result of the artificial light that we're putting out. And there's also many people concerned with the obtrusiveness of light on neighboring properties. And we have certain ways that we're trying to address that. Most of those are prescriptive rules that are already in the code by limiting heights, shielding, those types of things. So, and at the same time, you know, many people are saying, well, the code is so hard to understand. But the more that we try to add words to tighten up things, well, it makes it even harder to understand. So we're trying to do this balance act, which is one of the reasons it's taking so long. As long as it's taking, every day, the spectrum gets worse because more and more 5,000K LEDs get installed.
Sorry.
An online question first.
Oh, okay. So we have looks like an online question.
We have a couple that were written too that
Okay.
recently.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yes, so I've been trying to find information about the National Electrical Code. I know that Arizona has not adopted it. On their website, they list Arizona as local adoption only. I want to know if anyone knows, has Tucson or Pima County adopted any part of the NEC?
This is Clayton with the city of Tucson. Yes, both the city and the county have recently adopted the 2023 edition of the National Electric Code. Both the city and the county are on a 6-year adoption cycle. So the code, that the NEC is updated and published every 3 years in the city and county through the Joint Code Committee process of review those changes and make recommendations to our elected bodies for adoption of those codes. So yes, the NEC is a standard for the city of Tucson. And as it relates to outdoor lighting, they are both related to electricity, but the National Electric Code is based on safety with an intent to prevent injury and or fire, whereas the outdoor lighting code intent is to limit sky glow.
This is Alec. I can jump in on that as well. Kevin, one place you may want to look is the IECC, which is the International Energy Conservation Code, which I think aligns a bit more with the outdoor lighting code. There's also the IES, which is the Illuminating Engineering Society. Now that's not a code and it's not adopted by City of Tucson or Pima County, but it's a recommended standard by the
So-
design community itself. But I think that's probably where you're probably wanting to look at for things you're finding.
Well, let me explain a little bit what I'm kind of asking about. So my understanding of the NEC is that it contains things about recommendations for outdoor lighting for safety. For example, porch lighting. If the NEC says that you can have such and such a porch light, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. It seems to me that, like, how does that interact with the requirement that lighting can't be increased by more than 25% without a permit?
Let me address that. The NEC really only has provisions for required lighting at exterior egress doors, say to residential type occupancy. So you would be required to provide a light, but it doesn't really say how much light you have to have. The requirements for the amount of light that you have to have are in the building code, where it tells you have to have a certain amount of foot candles for egress purposes. So one of the things that we've been doing in our analysis of where the lumen caps should be is we've been looking at how many lumens does it take to actually provide that egress lighting on different types of buildings. And the subcommittee believes that for most buildings, the lumen caps presently will allow you to meet those minimum required amounts of light.
And that would supersede, so if it's a requirement, say that a home never had a porch light, which is the case with some of the homes in my neighborhood. If somebody installs one, they're allowed to do that even though the lighting code says you can't increase your lighting.
This is Clayton with the City of Tucson. So I want to publicly just repeat some things that have already been said, but to make one stream of consciousness, I'll start from the top. The building code requires a minimum level of safety through illumination at exterior exits. The electrical code establishes how lighting can be installed or may be installed or is allowed to be installed. And the outdoor lighting code establishes how much light a property may have based on its percentage of an acre. So you've got multiple codes here working in conjunction with each other. So it's really going to boil down to which specific standard you're trying to identify or isolate to identify which code or standard would apply.
And I think Rick had a comment to add to this, so I'm gonna call on him.
To add to what Clayton said, this is Rick Hollander, IEI, having served on NEC code making panels for 15 years and 5 cycles. The NEC is, as Clayton said, a safety standard, but it's also an installation code. All it tells you is how, where to install safely. As pointed out, the outdoor lighting code is a separate amendment addition to the NEC, but it is not in the NEC as to what can be installed other than those items that meet safety and installation requires a how to install those.
And do you have any more thoughts on this topic?
We received an online comment from Eric Wilson. He says, has TP been receptive or helpful in implementing standards from this committee? I noted that they discount LEDs. It might be nice to ask if they're giving rebates on non-compliant fixtures purposes if there is invisibility. TP.
I'll answer that, not to my knowledge.
Yeah, to my knowledge, that they're trying to be compliant with all the codes and regulations. TEP also does some lighting installations. They have lighting programs where you can essentially go into contract and TEP will put a light on a utility pole to provide outdoor lighting. And usually when that happens, they require that the property owner actually would do or have done the outdoor lighting calculation to prove that it's not gonna produce too much lighting. And I've had to do that for many projects where that type of lighting has gone in. And TEP does use, the LEDs they use are the 3,000 Kelvin or warmer. So they're trying to comply with code and they're fully shielded.
This is Clayton with the city of Tucson again. I'd like to point out that I also missed a very important code that was brought up by Alec, which is the Energy Conservation Code, which would limit the quantity or efficiency of power used and or the controls. So stepping back, if TEP gives away LED light bulbs, that's not to say that every light bulb would be installed outdoors. And they would be more in line with supporting the Energy Conservation Code as opposed to one of the other standards that we've talked about.
Oh, raised hand, sorry, Richard, Chair recognizes Dr. Richard Green.
I'm following up on the small issues that you brought up that is of interest, and that is to say internally illuminated signs. So I also went on that tour, and I think we decided that the signs that really probably had 5,000 K internal illumination, and it's a challenge.
You mean that visually it looked right? Yeah,
Yeah.
but then it's 5,000 K.
It's clear that the kind of inside to whatever they put on those signs varies so much from batch to batch that you can't hold them accountable for what comes out. So deciding what's inside the box is definitely the right approach. I guess I'd say you have to finish up, and so can't solve all problems at once, but we should at some point look again as to whether they really need 4,400 K or whether they could sacrifice a little bit. And the reason is those signs are diffusers. You know, they're wonderful. They send light out in all directions. They send light out in all directions. So they are sending a fair amount of blue light straight up. And that's undesirable from the point of view of trying to control sky glow, particularly in those colors. Just as a side note, I chair one of the county boards of adjustment, and a fair fraction of our business is exceptions to the sign code. I've now conditioned my colleagues enough so that they almost always want bigger signs. And so in exchange, we push, not me, but my colleagues push them to use lower CCD internal lighting. And so they're going to 3,500, and they're slightly grumpy, but it's on record that we passed this in order to get their variance. They're willing to back off the CCT. So it might be worth a look to find how we balance the tension between wanting less blue light and having the perfect signs that the sign industry wants.
Thank you. Anybody on the committee have questions or comments on that?
Not on that issue, but I have thought of another issue. Another thing that we could talk about. And it relates about how we will finalize the lumen caps. And the goal being to reduce sky glow. Another path that we could take would be to further limit the amount of unshielded light compared to what is allowed now. and, and knock those limits down even lower than we have. That, a fully shielded light fixture is much better for sky glow regardless of what its color temperature is, compared to an unshielded fixture that has a strong horizontal component of light or even has uplight going up. So, would we be better to take the tack to say, to heighten up the unshielded light even tighter than it is? I find when I do residential work, it's very, very difficult, even with the limits that we have. When people want to use decorative light fixtures, they tend to be unshielded. So I think it would be a hardship on the residential side. Yet residential, I'm told, is a big part of the unshielded light that's going up and creating the sky glow. When you get to more heavily regulated communities like Flagstaff, I think they don't allow anything other than fully shielded lights. So, that's another direction we could go. I've been trying to keep the ability to use some unshielded lighting. But if we were to really clamp down on that, then you have to look at what effect does that have. I mean, there are companies, there are people that make their living putting in landscape lighting that, let's face it, a lot of it shines upwards. Put them out of business. I don't want to do that. But that may be necessary to save the sky. So I'm open to people's opinion on that.
When you're specifically talking about that kind of lighting, I mean, I can see the problem. We need to examine that more closely. But, I just went to the International Association of Lighting Designers Conference last October and listened to them and had a lot of conversations, and a lot of them didn't seem to feel they were having that big of a problem finding shielded lighting or working towards protection of dark skies. So they felt some of the issues were more that they weren't in these kind of rooms bright enough. And having these discussions, that seemed to be one of their primary concerns, was like, let's be in the room so we can figure it out together. And so, I mean, when we're talking about just decorative lighting fixtures, and I think they're finding really creative ways to do that. Especially the guy who won their Lifetime Achievement Award. They showed a bunch of pictures and I was like, wow, he did some really cool stuff. So I think, we're gonna have to make some really hard decisions. In the near future, we talked about festoon lighting, right? For example, that's the light bulbs on the strings for anybody who doesn't know what those are. Remember, we spent like 2 hours finding, shields for those. And they exist.
And you don't see very many of those installed. And you also don't see many of those types of lights on plans either. People just put them in after the fact. And again, that goes back to the enforcement thing.
Yeah, that's an enforcement issue, and we can't deal with that, but it's remembering that, like, lighting is getting smarter, so that option does exist. We asked it in this subcommittee at some juncture last year, and we found the shield. We found shields for them. They exist. There's like 85 different kinds, and they're out there. So, as we're thinking about things like that, we have to be reasonable that in some cases, the solution doesn't exist. So is the solution we do nothing, or is the solution we say sorry until there's a solution? We can't have that. And I mean, it comes down to those being the kinds of choices. Especially if we're gonna go to mostly, if we're gonna say it has to be all shielded. If we wanna go that direction, and that is, to be clear with everyone, and you will come back me up, but Dr. Green can tell me if I'm right or wrong, but it's like, we have found scientifically that proper shields can eliminate, in a lot of cases, up to 90% of the upward light pollution. We can't do anything about reflectance, because I can't stop the ground from reflecting light upward. But when we go that direction, we're eliminating at least a significant part of the problem for new installations. And helping to dial that back quite a lot.
Minutes to your question about increasing the amount or the requirement for shielding, is it something that could be incorporated into your lumen multiplier?
Well, we already actually have it in the lumen caps right now because we have a amount of lumens that can be used if it is 100%. The current code called 100% full cutoff, you get to use more lumens than if you have mostly full cutoff with a percentage of
Unshielded.
unshielded.
I'm just wondering, if you want to incentivize 100% shielded, and you use what already exists and modify it and sort of strengthen it in the text.
Yeah, I think actually that's what I am thinking is that when it's 100% shielded, and whatever light is installed has less impact on sky flow. So instead of trying to bring everything down as much, but still allow people to use the unshielded light, we instead clamp down even more on the unshielded so we don't have to restrict the fully shielded quite as much. I'm trying to see if that would be reasonable. I'm just thinking in what I see being installed, that would likely create problems for people because people are still wanting to use more decorative lighting that is unshielded.
And I have to come up with some.
So if you're doing unshielded, then maybe your utility lighting needs to be more amber. So that you can do your decorative, sparkly decorative stuff. You need to take away the bad light from the utility areas. And I would include like just an ordinary parking lot as utility area. So that, I don't know, I'm trying to tweak these numbers in the lumen cap, which it's not just me, I'm writing them, but then we all are vetting it. So just trying to figure out where to push it.
Yeah, I think it would probably include realistically, maybe more attention to the percentages of unshielded and what types of unshielded uses might be considered. So you might adjust even downward the percentage of unshielded allowed and only for this
For specific
particular type of, you know, like we talked about landscape lighting.
Yeah, the areas I see it are landscape lighting oftentimes wants to have unshielded fixtures. And then at building main entrances and or significant areas in leisure properties and residential, people like a more decorative light fixture, which typically oftentimes will not be a fully cut off, fully shielded fixture. So I don't feel like I want to take that away from people. But those definitely contribute to the sky glow. But I don't know if we want to say in the code, you can only use these fixtures at these locations, or rather we just put a limit on how much you can use. And it's up to the designer, they can decide if they feel that the door to the furnace room needs an unshielded light fixture. Well, they can use it there, but still have a cap on how much you can have. So now maybe you can't put what you want by the front door. And I'm hoping people would make educated decisions to say, well, when I want to use this, I'll put it where it does the most for our aesthetic purposes and put better light where I don't need that aesthetic. So I want to leave that to individual designers.
What, just out of curiosity, what's happening with Pima County or City of Tucson Parks and Rec? Because I know we have an issue where we have a private HOA park and we do not have, and it is not illuminated. We specifically say it's open from sunrise to sunset. And it has some kind of some large playscapes in it, and we've got a problem with kids there in the dark. You know, so we're now working with our insurance company, and we've got all the signage. We've got all the signage that's like, you can't do this, you're not supposed to be here, blah, 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 right? But we now have an issue with the amount of use on an unlit, 20-foot playscape that, so I just don't know if Parks and Rec is dealing with lighting on playgrounds and things like that. Where does that fit?
Well, I would think that those types of areas would fit under the lumen cap and you'd be able to install lighting. If you install fully shielded lighting that's under the lumen cap, it could run all night long if you wanted to.
The challenge, I think, when Chris Monrad worked on it, when we looked at it, is that the typical place to install lighting would have been on the poles that are for the shade sails that are over these pieces of play equipment. And it was, for whatever reason, it ended up didn't do it.
Could make it work for some reason.
They're not, getting above those, and then if it's shielded, it somehow didn't get over to the piece of equipment from the pole, it was I just didn't know if Parks and Rec and their lighting.
I don't know. I've worked on a couple of park jobs. I think they've been more for City of Tucson than Pima County. But, for example, we did the Santa Rita Park redevelopment, and there's a substantial amount of lighting that's in that park. They've got trails that go all the way around the perimeter of the park, and they are all lit. And we are way under the allowable lumen cap on that project. Even with that kind of lighting, it doesn't need that much lighting relative to lumen cap. It's all, that type of light is all fully shielded. There's also ball field lighting, which isn't subjected to the lumen cap, but that's fitting under the curfews there in chapter 6. So that's how the park works. I've done some tent shaded projects where we were able to mount lights on the poles that were supporting the fabric tents.
Can you give me either now or offline what those are, because I'll go out at night and take a look at them.
Yeah, well, one that I can remember doing was I think it was at Sunrise Drive Elementary School. They have some tent shade structures kind of right near the front entry, and we put some lights on those. But I suppose if you had a really tall play equipment, maybe it wouldn't be lit all the way up to the top, but I think on the grade line, because they were full cut up pictures mounted on the tent poles.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's one that comes to mind.
there's, I'll also send you, Priscilla, there was a couple of parks I've been to in Tucson do that, where they have the sunshades and they also have lighting.
Yeah, if you could send them,
Yeah,
I'd appreciate
I
it.
can't remember what their names are right now, but I'll look them up, because I've been to them both.
I think we're gonna have to light them because of our insurance, even with all the disclaimers and, that kind of thing. So we're gonna have to retrofit it probably.
Yeah, I did fairly recently for a private developer that's doing Section 8 apartments down near South Avenue, south of Irvington, I think it is. And they've got like a splash pad in there. We lit all those. We haven't had any real issues, even the proposed lower lumen caps, no problem putting that kind of light in. Those types of sites tend to do, or to me, have always been easy on caps. Where the lumen caps seem to make more problems are where you have really, really dense sites, where you have very, very small lots and building development throughout the whole lot. Those are the ones that seem to run short on the lumen caps. Also than like a park area, because you generally have so much square footage and you're not fully lighting everything.
I don't think we were running up against the lumen cap on the park. I think we didn't want it to be used after dark.
Yeah.
So we didn't light it.
And then that
still
didn't
didn't
work out.
use- Yeah.
Yeah, and I would wager what's happening now, so now it's, they need to light up, but it's a clash between the solar shade and the light. Cause where the light has to go to light the space, the solar shade isn't the way.
Yeah, that's right. And what we don't want to do is put light on top of a roof, whatever it is, or
Yeah,
a fabric roof
so-
or anything. Yeah.
So essentially, what I could see the problem being, if I know Chris right, is he's trying to get under it, but the light has to be on a pole. And so he's struggling with how to do that.
Yeah, that implies that whatever they're lighting is very close to that.
Mhm.
I'll send you some pictures of the particular piece of play equipment that is the temptation, the after dark temptation, and see what you think.
All for kids.
Oh, children.
Oh, no, we had them climbing on the 80-foot ladder to the cell tower
Oh.
in the dark, that is unlit, in the dark. A group of 12, 13-year-olds.
Of course they are. That's what they do.
That's the age of good judges.
We all survived it somehow, right?
Sure, Chair recognizes Dr. Green.
This time I'll just be lazy and challenge. So another challenge for your uplight quotient is commercial properties, and I guess this is a city issue rather than a county issue, that have LED signboards. Because about 30% of their light output goes above horizontal. And so do you then give them another allocation for uplight in the luminous cap for the property? It's a complicated issue.
Yeah, they're treated as separate issues, so the LED signboards would be governed by chapter 5, and they'd be subject to the nit limitation as the signage. And then separately, their building or site premises lighting would be governed under outdoor lighting code. So yeah, that type of business could have uplight and have an LED signboard. You didn't say, but are you suggesting that if someone is using an LED graphic sign, that they should then not be allowed to have uplight otherwise?
I'm not proposing policy to you, but my colleague online noted that the downlooking satellite has shown that Tucson has gotten brighter at 6% per year since 2023. And you know, that can't all have been the growth of fully shielded lighting. And so there is a question of, you know, is that the growth of electronic signs? Is it just the propagation of a lot more unshielded lighting?
I don't personally, and it's just my anecdotal experience, I don't see that many LED electronic signs going in to make that difference. My opinion is all the lights that are going in without permits that are unshielded and wrong color temperature.
Or already, and already existing fixtures that are unshielded, that are prior to the code, that meet the code, and then somebody goes out, like Kevin said, in his neighborhood, somebody moves in, jams 5,000 Kelvin bulb and unshielded fixture that is legal.
Yeah, there's a lot of legacy, you know, and particularly residential, that standard used to be incandescent light fixtures, the jelly jar by the front door with an incandescent lamp. Produced adequate illumination at 60 watts or 75 watts or 100 watts. Now they can put in a 10 watt, 5,000 K LED, and the perception is it's 10 times brighter. And the reality, if you look at the spectrum, is you probably have 10 times the amount of blue light coming out of it compared to that incandescent. And that's the reality over and over and over again. It's on every residential street in the whole county.
Plan. But it's propagating everywhere.
And it's because you go to the hardware store, you can't buy that incandescent light bulb anymore. So now you have to make a choice when you're in the hardware store and you say, oh, well, this one says daylight. Well, that ought to be nice. And it's 5,000 kelvins. And nobody knows any better. So that tracks right back to, I think average people need some direction when they're buying light bulbs. That could solve much of it.
Scary thing is the satellite I quoted is blind in the blue. So
So
that's
that-
just the increase in green to orange light that it's sensitive to.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
Do we have any additional comments or questions online?
We just received a comment with a picture.
Okay.
So it says, if I may add on to the question about signs and unshielded with an example, does this look okay to meet the intent of the lighting code, or is this the type of site that could have some potential issues? The comment was made from Eric. Do you want to see the picture? Or,
I don't know.
let me see if I can, let me see if I can.
If you can't, without exploding the meeting, if you can, that would be great, but if it'll explode the meeting, we'll figure it out another way.
I think that's the LED sign that we've used for a long time as the excessively unnecessarily bright one when we do the tours.
So this is Clayton with the city of Tucson. Just speaking on the photograph itself, a couple of things stand out. Number one, the brightness or illumination of the sign itself on the left-hand side of the picture. That would be regulated by the allowable nits in the sign chapter of the lighting code. So it is not subject to the lumen budget as the light that is installed on the exterior side of the building. However, of the 5 lights that I see on the outside of the building, all 5 appear to be shining up and down. So I would question whether or not they're within their limit for unshielded light, simply because those wall sconces are shining up and down at the same time. So to answer the question, is it in compliance? That would actually be an analysis of the actual installed lighting fixtures, and the sign would be reviewed separately than the exterior fixtures.
I suspect you have a color temperature issue on those wall mount fixtures also. They're very blue white.
So, that is a good example of exactly what we're talking about. You have a sign and you have actual lighting.
Again, that gets addressed through code enforcement, not through our code. But it would currently be the level of compliance would have to be to the 2012 outdoor lighting code, because that's what's adopted at this point.
Well, unless the building, I'm not saying the building was built before that, but if the building was built before that code went into practice, then we're looking earlier.
Well, it could be, but if you look at the rules in both Tucson and Pima County, we've had rules going back to the 1970s. The lumen cap rules began in, what was it, 2000, 2001. Prior to that, there was limits on total wattage of unshielded light. And so the determination would be, number one, if those are LED light fixtures on the building, those products weren't even made, say, more than 20 years ago. So then you looked at it, did they have a building permit? If it's got a building permit, are these the lights that were on the building permit? Likely not. Because that wouldn't have been approved when they submitted the plan. So, you know, it requires that code enforcement do all this investigating. But, I mean, as of right now, since it appears to not be code, there'd be some burden on the building owner to say, hey, wait a minute, I can show you that I have approved plans to do this. Well, then that's, but if you look at it, I doubt that will be the case. So.
Yeah, of course. I was, making sure that we clarify in a full room of people and for everyone online, there's such a thing as legal non-conforming. And that the code we're working on now, but this is probably generally understood, I'm going to say it anyway, if this code that we are working on now, this update were to be accepted, in 2026, then it would apply to things that are built after 2026, not to things that were built in 2026. So If my neighbor got all brand new light fixtures on the outside of her house today, this new code, what we're doing here, does not say that she has to go rip them out and put new ones in. It's the 2012 code that governs her. And so if the 2012 code says that what she has is legal, now what she has is legal. And so it's a little bit more complicated. And that's why, you know, like Dennis is saying, enforcement has to do these big investigations because sometimes something will look like it doesn't meet the code, but in fact it is legal and non-conforming. Do we have any other comments or questions in the room? For discussion? Okay, do we have any more online?
I see a raised hand from Kevin.
Okay,
With regard to what the chair just said, with changes to the code, there's also a record of permits. If someone installs new lighting today, but they don't get a permit, then, you know, they don't have any evidence of when they installed that lighting. It's my understanding that if lighting is installed without, like, and this is another point I wanted to raise actually, with the code undergoing revision, I think it's important to establish a baseline of as far as enforcement before the code is revised, because there's so many violations right now. It's hard to establish when things were installed. Like, I mean, there are lights that I know when they were installed because I live next to them and I've reported them, but they haven't been resolved, and now it's been years. As far as I think permits are the establishes what code is in effect, what code applies to the lighting. Does that make sense? I'm not sure I'm explaining myself well.
it absolutely makes sense. You actually just reminded me, Kevin, that I had a question from something that Kevin said during the call to the audience. And this is for you, Dan and Clayton. So if enforcement is called out and they go and they do an investigation, and their investigation turns up either that it's illegal or not, like whatever the outcome is, does enforcement tell the person who made the complaint that information?
This is Clayton with the city. So current enforcement activities do occur both during the day and at night. Some initial investigations almost always occur during the day to get an assessment of the scenario, situation, things that can be seen and observed. And then if a follow-up call is necessary in the evening, that does happen by the city of Tucson. In the case where a violation is identified, then yes, the property owner is notified through the notification process associated with a notice of violation.
The property owner, but I'm asking about the person who made the complaint. So they are never notified. So it could be the enforcement has gone out and done the investigation, made the notification, or found no wrongdoing per code. And then no one, the person who made the complaint would not know that.
The standard operating procedure for the city is to record all findings of the investigation on the case of the investigation, which is public record.
Okay.
So correct, no direct communication is typically followed up with a complainant, but also many of the complaints that the city receives are anonymous. So
Okay, but they're public record.
right, it is public record. You can search through property research online to find the results of those investigations.
That's a search by address and it works really, really well. I oftentimes use that to find old plans for projects I'm designing. But when I do the search, there will be multiple things for complaints, traffic barricades, all sorts of activity, whatever somebody has to go get a permit for, whatever kind of activity, it's all recorded there. It's quite fascinating to see that. You can see any property by address.
Yeah, and this is Dan with Pima County. Our process is very similar to the city's. Our enforcement group, the initial complaint is typically during the day. But typically when they get pictures showing what appears to be a violation at night, they will go out at night and look at the property, and then if it's warranted and they issue the notice of violation. They give the property owner X number of days to obtain the permit and try to bring them into the lights into compliance if it isn't light complaint.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, do we have any additional comments or questions inside the room in here? Do we have any more online? I need to vote to close a discussion. No, just me. I'm sorry. I feel like sometimes, no, we're not there yet. Sorry, one more thing. Okay, we're gonna move on really quick to number 8 on the agenda, which is future agenda items. I think that the new format that we're using has been working really quite well. And I would personally really like to stick with it. This is something we do need to vote on, so committee, bear with me for 35 seconds. So if the committee is okay with that, I would really like to stick with this.
Just drop item 3.
Just drop, yeah, item 3, I don't think we need to redo that unless it's absolutely necessary.
We'll make sure we get it done.
Next time, I would like to talk about the call, what a call to the audience is gonna look like. Again, and when that will occur. So if we could add that to the agenda, and then can I get my brain stopped working, a motion on that, please? To make that change to the agenda so that we can do that for next time.
I didn't understand it. I'm sorry.
Oh, I would like to add a discussion item where we talk about what the next open public call to the audience will look like for comments. For written comments. We have
For
to do one
comments on
more-
the, you mean for comments on the code, Amy?
Yes, yeah, we have to do one more call on the next draft of the code, so I'd like to talk about what that's gonna look like next time.
And what you mean by what it looks like would it be a special session or something different from a normal meeting?
It's just gonna be an agenda item so that we can talk about, like, how are we going to do that? and-
Yeah,
and
you're
what's that-
asking for an agenda item to have a discussion about what the format of the next public comment on the code would look like.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, everybody clear?
Was that a motion, Bill?
I don't think
I
we
so
have a motion.
move, I so move.
So moved.
Second.
A second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Yep, 6 ayes.
Yep.
Okay, any opposed? No. The motion passes unanimously, and with that, adjourning this meeting, what do I say? I don't even know. This meeting stands adjourned. The time is 3:07 p.m. on July 1st, 2026, and the next meeting of the Tucson Pima County Outdoor Lighting Code Committee is, I don't know what day of the week it is. I mean, I don't know what the date is. August 5th. August 5th? August 5th, 2026, in this same room at 1 p.m.
Exactly 2 hours.
I'm sorry.
I know that's confusing. It's confusing. It's got data. That's, yeah. All right.
I did.
I know.